I believe the story of Woodburn is a story America needs right now. We don't ask what side of the aisle you're on. We're asking if you've eaten, if you've had food. We take care of each other. And like I said, the American dream, it's not dying. It's not fading. It's waiting for us to step up to it. And Woodburn, I know we will. Because if there's one thing that I know is that your voice matters, your presence matters, your courage matters. Yeah, don't let anybody tell you you don't belong, because you absolutely do. Your parents, they didn't sacrifice a lot for you to, have your head down. Right now Woodburn has a choice to shrink in fear or to stand up to what's going on. And I believe that Woodburn is going to stand up to what's going on because we're fighters. And I'm proud to be from Woodburn.
Hey there, and welcome to the Woodburn Podcast, where we believe every story matters and every neighbor has something worth sharing. I'm your host, Gilbert Lopez. I'll be sitting down with local business owners, community leaders, and hometown heroes right here in Woodburn. You'll discover amazing people in your own backyard and feel more connected to the community we call home. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Woodburn Podcast to be the first to know about new episodes and announcements.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Woodburn Podcast, and I have a very special guest in the house today, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. Michael Vasquez, he, him, and pronouns. Today I'm here as a 20-plus year community member of Woodburn, someone who cares deeply about this community. And today's views are my own. And even though I am on the school board, today I am here as a community member. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for stopping by. And you're a Woodburn native. So let's take it from the top. Tell me about growing up in Woodburn. How was that like?
Absolutely. Well, I'm the proud son of farm workers. Oregon born and raised. And I grew up here in Woodburn, but I like to begin with the proud son of farm workers because that's really where my story begins. Mm-hmm. Before politics, before I knew what left, right, or center meant, I knew family. And I knew to wake up before the sun was up and to pack 2 socks because one of my boots had a hole in it. Mm. And when you're moving irrigation pipes, it can be very cold and very muddy. And so you don't want that. And sometimes you have to choose between buying a new pair of boots or saving for something more important that may come down the pipeline, right? And so, I grew up here in Woodburn, and this is where my roots are.
How was your experience, in the moment? You thought it was normal?
Yeah, it's all I knew. Right? Yeah. What is normal, right? When all you see is that, my parents are farm workers, my, classmates, teammates, they had parents that were farm workers. It was very rare that, one of them would be a doctor or, an astronaut, right? Like in some other places. But that just meant that we knew how to do hard work and the grit and the determination that, later on when wrestling came in, it really sharpened that mindset. So.
Okay. So we were able to connect because of wrestling.
Yes.
Tell me, how did you get into wrestling? What made you wrestle?
Yeah, well, it's quite a story, right? And so I want to take it back a little bit before wrestling. Right? Okay. And so it's a 2-part. One, it was where I was working in the fields actually. And so there's a story about, my mom and I were picking berries and we were ending the day. And next to us, there was an older individual who he was not going to finish in time. And so, something inside of me said, hey, go help him. It's the way you were raised. And so I did. And so I got to know this individual, and he told me all about his story, how he had spent his entire life here, how he didn't have a single family member here, and how he was really looking forward to, going back home, seeing his family, seeing his kids. And, at the end, when we finished up, I wished him goodbye and we went our ways. The following week, I find out he's dead. He passed away from a cold. And while I didn't know him much, or long, I should say, I saw my parents' story and his story. And I knew that if I wanted a different ending, I had to outwork circumstance and I had to work hard. And so a couple years later, that's when wrestling entered my life. And that sport shaped me, the discipline, the grit, the mentality to cut 12 pounds in 24 hours. Jeez. It seems impossible. And ready to, step on the mat, ready to go to war and then win the championship. That's that mindset that not a lot of people understand. No. And when you're in that treadmill and you're on pound 7, knowing that you have a couple more pounds to go and your body's screaming at you and you're saying like, is it even worth it? And that actually leads me to the next point, right? Of why I did wrestling. And so wrestling gave me a sense of direction, right? And so my father, he gave me 2 options. He said, son, you go to the Marines or you go to college.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah. So taking on debt was never really an option for me. And I knew that I didn't want to take on debt.
Right.
And so I got to work, wrestling. That's when it really took me a whole different direction, from waking up at 4 a.m. when it was just cold. Sometimes it was that rain and you heard it and you hear that little voice in your head saying, oh, it's okay if you miss one day.
Right.
I just go to sleep. It's okay. No one would know. But I knew that my opponent was working at 4 a.m. and he was ready for that championship. And my mission was win a state championship, earn a scholarship, and go to college without taking on debt. So I had a deeper calling beyond just winning, is that I needed to win a state championship, because in my eyes, that's the only way that I could afford college.
Okay.
While I didn't end up winning state, I did become a state placer. And, that's really where a lot of my hard work and ethic really comes from, is that mentality.
I found a picture of you online. I want to show people. I really like this picture of you right here. Look.
So this picture, the story behind this picture, I don't know if you guys can see it really, really well, but I have a swollen lip, my forehead. It looks like I have 2 horns growing out of my forehead. And the individual next to me, nobody else is smiling on the podium. I'm the only one who's smiling with a big smile, because win or lose, I knew that the hard work, every single moment, from those 4 a.m., runs to, cutting those 12 pounds in 24 hours, it paid off, right? My parents' sacrifice paid off. Those late nights where I was struggling, and, those Thanksgiving where, we just had Thanksgiving and people are eating, and I have to lock myself in my room and eat a celery. Yeah, I missed out on a lot of holidays for a couple of years, but, I think it was worth it at the end of the journey, because it really cemented the discipline and the mentality that, after this, I can do anything. There's a famous saying in wrestling: once you wrestle, everything else in life is easy.
Dan Gable.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about when you're standing at the podium. How did you feel just standing there in front of everybody? This is at the Memorial Coliseum, right?
Yeah. So there's times, right? So public speaking, it's kind of scary, right? Yeah. And so I remember walking into the Coliseum. You walk in, you see the bright lights, you see the stadium, filled with people, they're roaring, the emotions are running high. You see kids running off the mat, they lost, they're crying. Yeah. You have kids super excited, they're on their way to win their second state championship. But for me, it was a moment of, when the blood round came around, where, when it was the match that you need to win to be a state placer, whether you win or lose after that, right? Yeah. That's really the match that mattered, because the person who I was wrestling was a guy from Dallas, the Dallas Dragons. Okay. And so he was, he was ranked high. He had beaten me a couple of times before, twice actually. Oh. And so I wasn't expected to make it past the blood round and become a state placer. And, he knew it. His coaches knew it. And so we were there, but I said, no, we're wrestling every single second to the very last second. And so we did. And I beat the kid, and he walked off, and we hugged, because that's, at the end of the day, it's sportsmanship. Yeah. We both want the same ending, but, you walk in there with a lot of respect, and you walk out with even more, right? So
that's what I love about wrestlers. A lot of respect. Yeah. You have to shake hands before and after the match.
Absolutely. And, that same lesson I've carried it with me, my entire life. And it's something that, when it comes to politics, it's something I carry, where, you and I can have a disagreement. We'll sit down over a cup of coffee, and at the end we'll stand up, shake hands, and we'll walk our own ways. And, next week we'll run into each other at Luis's Taqueria or the grocery store, and we'll say round 2, this time maybe over some tacos and a beer. And then you start developing that relationship, right? Yeah. Even with people who may not share the same viewpoints as you, right? But every step, matters. And I learned that all from wrestling.
Yeah. Shout out to Luis's Taqueria.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So after high school, what do you end up doing?
Yeah. So, after high school, that's when I went to the University of Oregon for 4 years. I studied political science with a double minor in planning public policy in management and Spanish. And so my goal after, high school and after getting into college was to head off to the Air Force.
Okay.
And, I was pursuing the officer route to get back to the country that gave my family so much. But life has a funny way of working out. Right?
Yeah.
And I graduated in 2020, which we all know was a pretty big year.
Yeah.
And so that didn't quite work out. But I said, you know what? The military will still be there. My community needs me right now, and I saw a bigger need. And so, yeah, I came home and I got involved in committees, different advocacy groups, boards. And so, little by little started to, make an impact. And that taught me that you don't need wealth. You don't need connections. You just need that desire to help people. Right?
Yeah.
And so that gave me my start. And, I worked on federal politics, fighting for farm worker rights. I traveled to DC, all over the country. And then after that, I got the opportunity to work in the state legislature, where I saw up close what it means to govern responsibly and what not governing responsibly looks like. And there's a lot happening at the moment. But yeah, that's a little bit more about my upbringing and where we are right now.
All right. So let's talk more about that journey. How was it like, being in DC, a kid from Woodburn, just making it to the Capitol? Like, how was that experience?
The first couple of times it was similar to when you're walking into the Coliseum. Right?
Okay.
It's just like bright lights. You see this, you see everything you see on the news, on the movies, the history, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I was fresh out of college, not married, no kids, no dog. I currently have a dog. He's my son. But yeah, it was, I had the free will, if you will. And so I go there and, I'm there fighting for farm worker rights, immigration rights, a lot of different things. And, you're happy, you're excited to talk to these senators, to these congresspeople. But then you start to realize why they call it the swamp. You start to see kind of that they give you the runaround. There's a little saying that I used to say that, I heard while I was in the movement, that it was like they were giving you a tole con el dedo, right?
Oh, man.
Like they weren't really giving you the full truth, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people become disillusioned, and I didn't quite see the impact that I wanted to see.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what led to my decision and to moving towards state politics and seeing more of a direct impact into what we're living day to day. And, our communities are suffering, and, a lot of the money that goes out, doesn't necessarily hit Woodburn like it should. And so that's where I have an issue, is where, we have hardworking individuals here who, work more than 2 jobs. They're single parent households, and yet they're struggling to put a roof over their kids, heads and, feed them. And I don't think that's acceptable in this country.
Right. And I know you talked about it when we had coffee, but talking about the Air Force, like you were ready to go. And then you're like, my community needs me. In order for me to serve the country, I'd rather serve my community first. And you came back home. You could have worked anywhere, but you decided to come back to Woodburn for a reason.
Absolutely. And it was a leap of faith, if you will, faith in the community that brought me up, not only the wrestling program, but the community, the neighbors who, sometimes I was hungry and they could see it, right? And they would give me a taco. Right? I owe a lot to this community, and my parents, they made their home here. And I knew that, I could go off, make a lot of money, go off to New York, do something else. But no, my calling was here in Woodburn because that's the way I was raised. And at the end of the day, I didn't feel comfortable knowing that my parents were here, in this, struggling to make ends meet. That didn't sit well with me. And I also saw a greater need with other individuals. And I said, you know what, let me make my impact here. Okay. And so that's what led me here home. And I'm a proud homeowner here, and it's going to be home for a while.
That's impressive. Like to do it at such a young age. Bro, I'm proud of you. I just met you, but I'm like very proud of you.
Yeah, well, I stand on the shoulder of everybody who believed in me, right? And who saw the potential in me. And while there were times that I didn't have people guiding me, there were always times there were people that people were encouraging me. Yeah. And so a lot of those individuals were from Woodburn, right? Because when you go to the University of Oregon, you're not going to bump into a lot of people that are from a place like Woodburn.
Yeah.
Right? All they really know is the outlet mall, if that, right? And so no, Woodburn is home to a lot of, great traditions, and I'm proud to be a part of this place with the beautiful traditions.
Yeah. So can you talk about some of the mentors that made an impact in your life?
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you say that because after high school, going into college, I said, I know that I kind of have an idea of what I want to study and what the impact that I want to have on the world. And I said, how do I do it? Okay. Right. My parents, they only know so much, and so they weren't going to help me make that leap. Right. They only know so much. And so who do I go to? So I said, I have teachers, you know, maybe they can point me in the right direction.
Right.
And so I just started sending emails and I said, hey, you know, teachers, principals, this is what I want to, you know, pursue. Can we sit down for coffee? And so, you know, the first year, that first summer before, you know, I became an undergrad and, you know, my first year in college, I was having coffees monthly, 2 coffees, 3 coffees, just multiple coffees with different individuals, professors, you know, and they just picking their brain, like, you know, tell me about your life, your experience. And these were individuals who, some of them had political experience, had, you know, been elected positions, or maybe they just knew about it and they wanted to help me along the way. Right. And really what I wanted to do was learn. Right? I wanted to learn what exactly was wrong with the system and the tools that we have available to help make it a better situation. And so, you know, those mentors were, you know, one of my principals. He was a big proponent of that. My wrestling coach, you know, he was like a second father figure to me while I was, you know, growing up in high school. That's why wrestling really, really hit home, right? Is because, you know, when I wasn't at home, I was in my other home, which was the mat. Right? That really helped push me forward and it all fell into place that way.
Are you referring to Dusty Price?
Dusty Price. Yeah. And so I had the opportunity to be there during his first year, coaching at Woodburn.
Okay.
And so his last year, that's when I came back and I helped coach. And so I was on that coaching corner with him. And I will be honest with you, I think some of the best wrestling moments that I have in my brain engraved in there have been as a coach, you know, for seeing the smiles and just the excitement of kids, you know, whether they win their district championship or they're going on to state or they're a state placer, just because I know what that feels like. And I know that sometimes that's going to make the difference between, you know, not going to college or going to college or pursuing something because, you know, you said, I did something, I could do more. What else can I do? Yeah. And it gives you that mindset, right? And so those are the moments I live for.
Oh, that's cool. When you're able to help somebody else succeed.
Yeah.
I think that's when you're making a difference.
And I do want to, you know, talk about a specific instance where, you know, we had this very talented kid on the team when I was coaching, and, you know, he was somebody who, you know, he was focused on winning, you know, and like I did, you know, while I was in his shoes, you know, I had a mission and he had a mission. He didn't really talk about it to the rest of the team and the other coaches, but I had that one-on-one with him. He said, Coach, I want to wrestle in college, but none of my teammates believe that I can, and they all think I'm too cocky. And he was very good. He didn't have the grades. And so I said, focus on your grades. And when it comes down to the mat, I will make sure that we work hard so you have the best opportunity to wrestle in college. And so fast forward, we're at the district championship, right? And so all throughout that, you know, every day I'd be like, you know, we have bigger dreams. We have bigger dreams. Every time I saw him, you know, lacking or, you know, taking a breather. Yeah. And so when it came down, he got to the district finals. He was in that match. He was losing, and I could see it in his eyes, you know, that he was going to lose it. And I said, we have bigger dreams. We have bigger dreams. And it makes me teary eyed because at the end of that, you know, he pinned the guy. The first thing he did, he's a district champion now. He goes and he hugs me. Out of everybody, his family's there, you know, Dusty Price is there, and he hugs me. And he says, I was going to lose that match if it weren't for you. And that's something that I carry deep with me. And those are the moments that I live for. Yeah.
You gave me goosebumps. That's an amazing story, bro. Thank you for sharing that. Dude. Wow. Well, hey, that kid will always remember you.
Absolutely.
See, that's why I love the sport of wrestling. It's just like, there's so much. It's just not just a sport.
It's not. And, you know, everybody I meet who they're like, yeah, you know, I want to get my kid into sports. Yeah. I'm like, have you thought about wrestling? You know, and so it's one of those sports where, you know, it really builds your athleticism. So whatever sport you want to do, if you want to, you know, leave wrestling, you're going to be physically built, right? And not only that, but your mentality, and that's going to apply to more than just a sport. It's going to apply to the grades. So it's going to build that mindset that if I want to wrestle or if I want to do something else, I got to get my grades right first. Yeah. And so that's something that I see in a lot of wrestlers and a lot of individuals, is the academics. And that's something that Dusty was big on, right? Was making sure that we had great grades, not good grades, great grades. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that about him.
Oh, man. Yeah, we miss him, having him as the coach.
Yeah.
I know he's the principal right now.
Yeah, Jervis.
Yeah, good for him.
Absolutely. They're good to have him. Yeah.
All right. So there's Woodburn's been going through a lot lately. You know, the presence of ICE and just spreading fear. And I know you can't really talk too much about it, but from what you know are able to discuss, like what's happening here in Woodburn.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, it's too important not to.
Yeah.
Again, these are my viewpoints. Not even though I'm on the school board, these views don't represent the wider school board viewpoints. But yeah, so there's a lot going on in our communities.
Yep.
You know, we're seeing it day to day. We're seeing it in the grocery stores. Right? We're seeing it in the quiet whispers happening at church. We see it in the eyes of parents dropping off their kids at school, wondering what tomorrow may bring, if they'll be able to pick up their kid or if they're going to get picked up along the way. There's a lot of fear, and the city of Woodburn declared a state of emergency, and rightfully so, because it shows that Woodburn stands behind its most vulnerable citizens. And that's what we want. We want your community to be backed up by its government, the people who we elect to represent us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the schools are also doing their part. We just readopted a resolution that reaffirms that our schools are safe and welcoming place. And we added a couple more things on there, more teeth, if you will, to make sure that, we really control what is going on and have protocols in place to make sure that every student who shows up is able to, get home safely. And while they're there, that they're able to thrive in that environment, because scared students don't learn.
Right.
And so, yeah, so right now, there are individuals at every entry point. They're keeping an eye out for, suspicious activity, whether that be somebody that looks like ICE or whatever it may be, and they're reporting back. And so we also have the protocol that ICE is not allowed into our schools without a federal warrant signed by a judge. And so if they show up, they need to go to the main office. And from there, we contact legal and we say, hey, is this legit? Is this right? And then we take the necessary steps to make sure that our students, our teachers, and our family members are safe.
Yeah, I saw that just past beginning of the month, right?
Beginning of the month. And every day, we're looking at what else we can do to, help improve it, because, things are developing. And when you have, federal agents and unmarked vehicles who kidnap people off the street and then they disappear without any accountability, that undermines the foundation of a free society. And that should alarm everybody, regardless of where you stand on immigration or what what side of the aisle you stand on.
Right. Yeah, you see that on social media like every day.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say a parent does get detained by ICE and they have students. What protocols do you guys have?
Absolutely.
What
well,
happens?
Before this happens, we make sure that students, they have a checklist. They have a checklist of what they need to do in case something like this happens, which is tragic.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of that is, having information on file, who to call, emergency contacts, what paperwork you need to have on hand. And, let's say somebody gets picked up, unfortunately, right? We make sure that student and their family, they have somebody to go to, and that they have the resources, they know who to contact, and we're able to provide them with that help that they're going to need, because it's traumatizing. It really is. And no student should ever have to go through that, or family.
No. And like, what else can you elaborate a little bit more? I know you have to watch what you say. Don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to do is just give people peace of mind, knowing
Absolutely.
hey, there's people looking out for the city.
No, absolutely. And I think, look around you. We have, again, a city that declared a state of emergency. We have, elected leaders who I myself have had, coffee with and said, hey, like, what are we doing? What else can we do? How can we step up? So rest assured that even though it's not super public right now, things are being done behind the scenes to make sure that our community is safe, because Woodburn is a hub for the Latino community and the Russian community, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a very diverse community, and we need to be able to lead the way on what's going on. And so we look at places like Hillsborough and would like to see what we can, help learn from them, that's working from them. What else is working across the country, whether that be Chicago, New York, to better strengthen those protections. And so at the moment, I can say this, that things are being done to make this a safer community.
Okay. Yeah, I just appreciate all you do behind the scenes.
Yes.
And I know you have connection through like the federal, the state, local. Mm-hmm. Can you talk more about that scope, like the whole scope that you see?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think a lot of, individuals become disillusioned when we see the things on TV.
Yeah.
What's happening in DC. That's a lot of what you hear is, this is what's going on in DC. And so depending on where you stand, right, it's, it's either going to hurt you or you think it's going to help you. Right? And so sometimes we get frustrated when things are not going our way, where our situation is not improving yet. They told us it would, right? They made these promises that the economy was going to be better, that, we were going to get these, these refunds, these, all these incentives, and it's not happening, correct? But when you start, narrowing it down, then you start looking at, okay, what is going on at the state level? And so right now, what's going on at the state level is that, Oregon is a sanctuary, state. And we have elected leaders who are, pushing for that to go even further, right? To make sure that every single person here feels safe and welcome, regardless of their status, their race, their gender, that Oregon becomes a home for them. And so then you narrow it down even more. And so that's really where the bread and butter is at the local level. That's really where you see the impact. Right? You see it in our schools. You see it in our city. And yeah, I'm thankful for my colleagues and, the individuals in the city right now who they have stepped up. They have stepped up, and right now that's all we can really ask for and support them, right? How can we support our leaders to support us? Okay. Correct? Because we're all in this together, right? I think if there's something that really resonates with me is that, I keep hearing that the American dream is dying, that it's fading. I don't think that's true. I think that it's there and it's waiting for us to rise to it. And I know that we will. Our parents survived worse. Our grandparents, they crossed deserts, borders, oceans, mountains, all in pursuit of a dream that they would never fully see, but they believed that we could achieve. And you want to know what that dream is?
What is it?
It's you, me, and every child out there, every grandma praying for her kids before school. It's that hope, right? And so that's what keeps us going. It's the hope that, this is in America where, we grow up again, we shake each other's hands at the end of a conversation where we may not agree. But that's America that I have hope for. And that's the Woodburn that I love. And I'm thankful for having grown up here because that's a mentality that I have. And I know, that's not popular with a lot of, individuals where it's, you're on that side or you're on this side. No, I'm on the side that makes sense. And that to me, helping people makes sense. Yeah. Regardless of where you stand. Yeah. And you can make all the promises you want, but if the impact is not being felt by the most vulnerable communities, then it's not going far enough for me. Right. And that's why we keep pushing the line to make sure that we keep making this a better place for all.
I love it. Love it. So what's next for you? What's happening in the works?
Yeah. So I can't talk too much about it, but what I can say is that 2026 is going to be an exciting year. So stay tuned and you'll know soon enough. I mean, the year is almost up.
Awesome. And I got to ask you, if you can jump in a time machine, go back in time and talk to your younger self, what advice will you give yourself?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I've thought about, I think about this quite often actually. Okay. There'd be a couple things. At the end of the day, I would say this. There has been a lot of imposter syndrome. And I see it with a lot of people that come from Woodburn. Okay. That, they go out into their career fields and because they never really saw it around them, they don't know if that's what it should look like, if that's how they should act, if, they don't really know. And so if I could go back and tell my younger self, it's just believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself. And not that I didn't believe in myself, but there were always those doubts. And had I fully 100% and 110% believed in myself, who knows where we'd be right now. But, you start developing slowly but surely. And then wrestling, that's when that came in. And it, it gave me that confidence that I didn't have when I was a kid. I think the second thing would be, don't cut as much weight. Don't cut as much weight. I'm sure I could have grown a couple more inches had I not, deprivated my body from all those nutrients. Yeah. But yeah, no, there'd be a couple different things that I'd say to myself. But also love yourself. Mm-hmm. I think people can be hard on themselves, when things are not going their way. But always remember that at the end of the day, no one's going to care for you like you. And you have to fill your cup to make sure that you have enough water to fill other cups. If you want to help others, you got to first take care of you. And so I think that's something that I've learned. And so I carry it now in my habits. So I make sure to stay hydrated. I eat my veggies. And so, yeah, it's, it's all led down this path.
Yeah, you walked in with a big water container.
Yup. Hydration is key, I say. Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to address to people?
Yeah. I think right now there's a feeling of a big dark cloud hanging over our families. And the thing about clouds, and something that I learned out in those muddy fields, is that they don't last long. They disperse, and when they do, that's when the light, it shows. And right now we're not seeing the light, but it will come. And I know that because we're going to bring it. And we have people in Woodburn who show us the light every single day in the work that they do and how they do it. We have some of the hardest working individuals, and that's what gives me hope. Not only about the country, but about what's going on here in Woodburn, because I believe the story of Woodburn is a story America needs right now, which is the story where, our kids grow up saying, I love you in 3 different languages, right? Yeah. Where we don't ask what side of the aisle you're on. We're asking if you've eaten, if you've had food. We take care of each other. And like I said, the American dream, it's not dying. It's not fading. It's waiting for us to step up to it. In Woodburn, I know we will. Because if there's one thing that I know, is that your voice matters, your presence matters, your courage matters. Yeah, don't let anybody tell you you don't belong, because you absolutely do. Your parents, they didn't sacrifice a lot for you to, have your head down. Right now, Woodburn has a choice to shrink in fear or to stand up to what's going on. And I believe that Woodburn is going to stand up to what's going on, because we're fighters. And I'm proud to be from Woodburn.
I love it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Final question, closing. The Woodburn students out there, what advice do you have for them?
Absolutely. When you're making that decision about whether to go to college, whether not to go to college, whether you're going to pursue the military, whether you're going to pursue any other route, there are always going to be people that are going to tell you, oh, go this, do that. I hear it every day almost about people who said, yeah, I only went to college because my parents told me so. Mm-hmm. Or I only did this because somebody told me, or I didn't believe that I could. Yeah. No, pick something and go run with it. You might not fully get there, but you're going to learn so much about yourself, and whether you like it or not. And chances are you're probably not going to like it. But let me tell you, that's the beauty about being young, is that you have the opportunity to try different things, to fail. And that's the beauty of life, right? Is that you get to try again. And, if you spend 10 years in a career field, you could always move on to another one as long as you put in the work. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Michael, thank you for joining us here at the Woodburn Podcast. And I'm excited to see what's next for you. Yeah,
thank you for having me. Excited with what you've done with the podcast, and I'm excited with the upcoming guests that you have going on. And so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah,
awesome. Hi, buddy.
Thanks.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for listening to the Woodburn Podcast. If you enjoyed it, share it with a neighbor, and make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Woodburn Podcast. Until next time, stay safe and watch out for those potholes.